week on the Virtual Skeptics. Bob is getting artsy. Eve is gathering animals. And Tim is watching TV, not behind me. I'm your host, Brian Gregory. And check out my new games! I timed that a little early, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
I did. Yes. Hi, everyone. My new house. This is me.
Yay!
Yay! So, welcome to another show. After how many weeks we were off? We're off 2 weeks at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. Busy. Couple of weeks. Summer. I moved. Tim was busy. And stuff.
Yeah.
Hi. Welcome to Virtual Skeptics. If you're watching, you can participate by these means. I'm gonna do this first because I feel like it. Because I'm just gonna randomly change it up every week. Okay, so if you want to participate, you can harass us, or probably not harass us, but submit jokes and stuff. You can use the Twitter's hashtag Virtual Skeptics. You can use the Q&A app on Google Plus, or you can comment on the YouTube channel, and we will do our best to validate you as a person. This is the crew we've got this week. I'm going to go ahead and introduce these suckers. First up, we have Bob Moskowitz. He's highest conspiracy guy, web columnist, blogger for Skeptics Humanities, and Skeptic Alley contributor. And his microphone is working.
Yay!
Eve Siebert, editor and blogger at Skeptic Humanities, and contributor to Skeptic Alley and Insight at Skeptic.com. And also Tim Farley.
Hi.
Skeptic Tools and Insight at Skeptic.com. Skeptic Alley contributor and creator of What's the Harm, and former JRF fellow. Hey, all.
Howdy.
Hey.
Howdy. How you doing?
It's a real shame that we were off the last couple of weeks, because I think we should have been doing a segment called Where in the World is Barbara Drescher?
That's true. She's been all over the place.
Yeah.
So did she come and see you, Tim?
Not to my knowledge. If she did,
Like
she's
you.
very sneaky about it.
She doesn't like you.
No. Well, she came to D.C., and I had dinner with her and her two boys. And unfortunately, if I'd planned better, I would have taken them to NASA, but they were off and heading north, and I think we're with you guys.
The next day, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In Philly, and been hanging around New England for a little while. She left, or she... I don't even know where she went.
She was in Canada for a while.
Canada.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's nice. That's nice up there in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, I wish I was, hobnobbing around over the country with cool people. Okay, so we do a few things at the beginning of the show, but besides just chat and waste time. But we do a trivia question, which y'all can answer with the means I mentioned earlier. Tim, you got a trivia question for us?
Yeah, I do. It is about a person who figures in a skeptical topic. And I'm
Shocked.
going to tell you her actual given name, but she's better known under another name. And that's what I want. I want the other name. She was from Minnesota, and her real name was Shirley Ardell Mason. Who is Shirley Ardell Mason better known as?
I'd guess, but I don't want to inadvertently be right this early.
Don't guess.
Charlie? No.
No.
No, not Charlie. Well, and in case you haven't noticed, I do have a screen behind me. I only have one this week, and it's freaking huge. Because I thought that since you guys can't see the little screens...
Which is kind of the point, though.
I know. But so this is a big one, and this should be really easy. Everyone should know this one. And by now, if you haven't got it, then I'm very sad. So go ahead and try to figure that out. Just a reminder, Twitter, YouTube comments, don't use the Q&A app for anything but questions. Because we need to use that to tag them in the video for later. Because we're going to answer questions and stuff. Anyway, up first this week, Bob is not doing a story about Rembrandt.
Not exactly. Yeah. So I guess that means it's me. I should have looked at this.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah,
So this week, an article appeared in the journal. I'll get to that. It was called Rembrandt Self-Portraits. It was published by Francis O'Neill and Sophia Palazzo Corner. It
Palazzo Corner sounds like an architectural feature.
It's not.
Oh.
That's
Do they have those in Atlanta?
Sophia Palazzo Corner. Yeah.
What's the corner?
Um,
A fancy way to make up a bed.
That's true.
I
so,
made my bed up with lots of corners.
all right. So it is. Let me read you the abstract. This paper initially presents a demonstration of the ability of 17th century artists to achieve self-portrait projections using concave and flat mirrors, and subsequently develops a case for the likelihood of this technique being employed by Rembrandt and other old master painters. And they start with the Hockney-Falco thesis of 2000. This is the one that Eve wrote about for Skeptical Inquirer last year. The Penn and Teller's other bullshit, you may remember. So it was the Vermeer, Tim's Vermeer.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that optics had been used, and apparently one of the arguments against optics was that it would be impossible for these people to paint using the projection system that was posited for them to paint self-portraits. And so what these people did was figure out a way that you could paint self-portraits. You could see a projection of yourself while you were painting. And that's basically it, you know. It turns out not hard. I'll give you an example of one of the configurations that they offer. Right here. Can you see that?
This would be a great slide.
Yeah.
So I know. I was just thinking, like, you bastards.
Yeah. So only there were a way for us to show graphics on the screen.
Yeah, I tell you.
Technology.
I did. But so basically, what you do is you sit near a curved mirror that projects onto a screen.
I think you should shake that more because it's not.
Yeah. So that's what they discovered. And there are a couple of other setups, a couple of other, but they're basically the same. Different ways that different effects could be achieved. But the problem is that they're building on this really discredited theory put forward by Hockney and Falco. You might remember that Hockney...
I loved them in the 80s.
They were good, weren't they? Rock me, Amadeus. Yeah. Hockney. Hockney Amadeus. So David Hockney's Secret Knowledge. Also Philip Stedman's Vermeer's Camera are two of the sources that they used for this. The Hockney-Falco thesis of 2000 presented compelling evidence for the use of lenses, concave mirrors, and camera obscuras in pieces dated as early as 1350. Let me see. A major criticism of the proposal that old master painters used projected images lay in the realism achieved in self-portraits of the same period. Working on the assumption that the use of projections for self-portraits was not possible, it was argued that it was unnecessary for artists who created such realistic self-portraits to use projections for other subject matter. By demonstrating that this assumption is false, this paper both supports and extends the proposal of Hockney-Falco, the Hockney-Falco thesis. So the idea is if they can disprove this one objection, they're going to just go batshit with this theory, which is not a good theory because it ignores a lot of stuff.
Really quick.
Yes.
What is the theory specifically?
The idea is that the super realist Vermeer could not possibly have painted himself, painted scenes without some sort of assistance, hyper-realistic scenes without optical assistance.
Okay.
Okay.
And okay, because there was a question, Pierre Cloutier, which is my favorite name to say, of our watchers. asked if there's any evidence that painters in fact use these techniques. Now, I guess this is a complicated thing. So because they're trying to prove that it wasn't possible for them to do it this way at the time.
Well, what they're saying is that it's a lot more elaborate and intricate than it in fact was. There were some people who mentioned things like camera obscuras, and may well have been inspired by some of the light effects that you saw there. But was it a practical technique for painting? It seems to be somewhat less certain. Yes, Eve?
Well, Hockney pretty much claims, like, everyone from around 1400 on was using them.
That's right.
All the time. And with Vermeer particularly, well, first of all, it's kind of dumb that he's in such a special category, and yet everyone else was doing it too. But even with Vermeer, he didn't have any formal training, so how could he have possibly done that?
But even that argument about formal training is basically an argument from ignorance. We don't have any documentation that he had formal training, but his dad was an art dealer.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, like, it's not impossible that he would have received it informally, or just been in contact with the art world. Other problems with the theory is that Vermeer, and this is my favorite problem. Vermeer died dirt poor. He died with nothing, almost nothing. So poor was he when he died that they took.
How poor was he, Bob?
How poor was he?
He was so poor. They took an inventory of the stuff that he had in his shop when he died, and guess what wasn't there? Complicated optics.
Yeah.
So we know exactly what he had. and the idea, and they even go here, this paper works on the assumption that these painters had access to the most modern and possibly secret optical equipment of their time. Oh, shit. Well, it's over there. It was like it's built on a conspiracy theory that they're hiding this special optics, and the argument.
And that's why we don't have actual evidence for it.
Because it was secret.
Yeah.
Secrets of the guilds and all that. And they actually say that, like, they would have known, because they were in guilds and professional groups like that those guilds
do this underwater?
were known to be have members who were also scientists and who's the guy who invented the microscope? What was his damn name? Van Leeuwenhoek.
Oh yeah.
So clearly the place was filthy with lenses, and they were just lying around, but secret.
But there's also the idea. It's one thing to say, like, Vermeer, Rembrandt, whoever might have gotten a chance to look through, look in a camera obscura or something and gone, ooh, neat. And, it kind of gives me an idea. Versus all their paintings were painstakingly painted, exclusively using camera obscura, mirrors, and they were just painting what they saw.
And that's just wrong on the face of it.
Particularly with Vermeer, that is what it's sort of. He was so super brilliant and also
incompetent,
had no skill of his own
or imagination, right?
Exactly.
So he was just
yes.
So he was a skilled painter, just not amazingly skilled, is what the argument is.
Kind of, but he was.
Or not even that. I mean, with Tim's Vermeer, it's not even that, because Tim, not our Tim, but the Tim from Tim's Vermeer, not a painter at all, and then painted a Vermeer.
Well, something like a Vermeer.
Not as well as Vermeer.
We didn't actually get a close-up, I noticed, at the end of that. It's like a side-by-side comparison, so there may be some issues there. But
so it's a movie then.
So yeah, basically these people. Well,
should I waste time watching this movie?
The Penn Teller documentary? No.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a well-done movie, and it's an
It
interesting
is well
story
done,
about
and it's beautiful. Yeah.
It's an interesting story about a personal obsession.
yeah,
that's true. That's true.
Tim's journey of trying to prove this theory and building a shop to do it and grinding his own lenses and just...
So
That's
I won't
just-
take it off my Netflix queue then.
He
Just
went
be
through a huge
skeptical.
amount of effort.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
and
He's
and
skeptical of the conclusion.
Teller did a good job, Eve, as you pointed out. He did a really good job at keeping you interested despite the drudgery that this involved.
Yeah, it's
So
well made.
Yeah, it's just wrong.
You should just read the review of the film in Skeptical Inquirer before or after you watch Tim's Vermeer.
Before. So yeah, so I was looking at I sent an email to the editor of the journal. The journal is called Optics, the august art history journal, Optics. This is the scope. This is the subject coverage of this monthly journal: nanophotonics and plasmonics, metamaterials and structured photonic materials, quantum photonics, biophotonics, 17th century Dutch masters, light matter interactions, nonlinear ultrafast optics, propagation, diffraction, and scattering, information and communication optics, integrated photonics, photovoltaics, and energy harvesting.
Are you
wait.
saying that something doesn't quite fit?
What?
I'm saying that this
No
is
0 point energy? I mean, I'm disappointed.
Yeah. Well, it's like doing this is published in the wrong journal. You look at the list of experts who are. I can't even imagine which area this is supposed to fall into. You know, so this is just badly placed. I don't see anybody on here who's qualified to any of their editors who are qualified to review it. I asked, who were the people who reviewed this? I didn't get a response, but it was short notice, so I don't hold it against him. If I hear, I'll let you know.
So you're saying there aren't a whole lot of experts in 17th century Dutch art on
optics?
the editorial board?
Amongst the optical physicists and engineers who are on the editorial board of...
Weird.
It seems like it may have been poorly placed.
Optics historian?
Oh yeah, you can have a historian of science. You could totally do that. That would be a real thing.
That's just kind of what you need is
but
someone who
not in the journal Optics. I'm guessing.
Oh.
You know, because it seems like they're pushing ahead with optical systems. That's what they're trying to do with the fundamental physics of optical systems.
Yeah, so mostly engineers and not a lot of historians or
none.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that's kind of telling is if you look at their bibliography and you count the citations, Philip Stedman's Vermeer's camera gets cited 21 times out of 79 citations, and Hockney's book Secret Knowledge Hockney is cited 17 times. That's 38 out of 70, almost 50% come from two authors. That is massively inbred.
Back
research.
at you, man.
Mm-hmm.
There were maybe 9 or 10 sources overall that were used. It really is academic inbreeding.
I love that term.
Yeah. The errors multiply when you don't have lots of sources.
So does that mean the result is the academic version of Cletus the slack-jawed yokel?
Kinda. So, you wouldn't expect it to be great given some of the problems, and it's not. So, and I keep getting frustrated because I see it being the Smithsonian Twitter feed twatted. Jennifer Ouellette retweeted something about it.
Well, it's the same thing with Tim's Vermeer, and this is sort of sciencing the arts and sciencing the humanities, which can be frustrating. When Tim's Vermeer came out, even before it came out, people were saying it proved that Vermeer used optics. It showed, and it's like it doesn't do that. at all. And some of their argumentation it's ancient alien sort of
special pleading and arguments from ignorance.
Ignorance, yeah.
And then also omission of pertinent facts. Like you can see how he derived his. There are two ways to get perspective. You could either do it with optics, or you could do it with geometry, and draw a vanishing point, and all the lines converge on that. You can see the pinhole where he drew those lines of perspective.
In at least one of his paintings.
Yeah, in a couple of his paintings.
Yeah.
So we know that it's wrong from the beginning. And then there's the other bit where their theory actually can accommodate what we actually see. They say that the music lesson, which is the one that they're painting in the movie, is it's just super realistic, but it's not. If you look in the mirror, ironically, you look in the mirror that's above the girl, she's playing the piano or the harpsichord, and her eyes, her gaze are focusing in the mirror on her teacher. Yeah, her head's turned. And so she's thinking something else is what they're trying to imply. That's not realistic.
Yeah, well, which also means he revised, he changed his plan at some point. Plus, that mirror would have to be at an angle like that or something to get the reflection.
So it's not realistic, It's imaginative to a degree that they don't allow for. And in this one, they're saying a lot of the same things, like that in instances where, for instance, the hands were clasped together, he could never actually model his hands clasped together in his self-portraits because he'd have to be painting, which is trivially true, but you can still look, Right. And so it just denies any imagination whatsoever on his part or memory on his part, and they seem to think that his lack of memory is reflected in his hands having less detail. Like, show me how you get there.
Oh, you know what? That's sort of another thing about it. It seemed to me trying to have it both ways with the arguments. Because with Vermeer, one of the arguments in favor of optics is like things actually being sort of slightly out of focus that are to the side.
So you would see towards the center of the image that you would have things that are in sharper focus, and then around the edges, softer focus.
And that is one of the things that some more moderate people think, well, maybe he did, look in some optics at some point and was influenced by that. But on the other hand, they talk about hyperrealism, almost like naturalism, and try to have it both ways.
Yeah, and there's actually another way that you could do it is you could think of it as being a psychological realism, where what we are focusing on in the middle we see more clearly than what we see at the sides. So it could be an expression of that type of that realization. Mm-hmm. So I mean, there are lots of different ways to think about it.
So what's pretty clear is that there's no definitive one way or the other.
I mean, it's 350 years past,
Well, in the case of Vermeer, there's pretty strong evidence that he was not using them all the time. I don't know about Rembrandt, but with Vermeer, the fact that he did not have optics is a huge argument against it. The fact that there are the pinpricks in his canvases suggesting that he was using a different method for perspective.
Those are fatal to the hypothesis that half this paper is built on. So and nobody seems to have noticed how bad it was. So what we're saying is that we would like to send a copy of Skeptical Inquirer to the people at Optics. There's science in there; they'll love it, but there's also some other stuff too.
Very cool.
So yeah. I have no idea what that movie is behind you. No idea.
Yeah.
You could never.
Right.
They're
The
so
Crazy
hard.
Dwarf on Twitter said, wasn't there a famous artist who had an early work vandalized because of accusations he or she painted over a photo? Anyone?
Possibly.
It
I don't
sounds
know.
vaguely familiar, but I don't remember.
Yeah,
Well, one of the examples that they give in here of using optical devices to I'm not exactly sure how it fits in, but they said that they would take, if you're not very good at figure drawing, but you were good with color, one of the things you could do would be to take oh God, what was it? It sounded like like shadow puppets, basically. Somebody draws the shadow on a piece of paper, and you put it up to the window, and it projects onto something else, and you just fill in with color. I don't know. I'm a moron. I should have read more closely, but it was not great.
Nope, don't know that one.
Nope, sorry.
Nope. Thanks, Bob. That was interesting.
Did they not find a photograph then after that? Was it like done on photographic paper? Because you could tell.
I don't.
On the backside. I don't know.
Yeah. You know. We've got some more people showing up on the this is the YouTube. I suspect I know who GSOW team is. Hi.
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 But I guess Tim's next. Tim is going to be watching TV. Let's all tune in to the TV that Tim is watching.
Okay. No, I was going to talk about TV. There's been a lot of interesting TV recently, and we just finished watching last night a new show that came out this week, which was not the show I want to talk about, but it had a kind of a skeptic tie-in because they based the story is in part based on the whole MK Ultra thing.
I know what you're talking about.
I know what you're talking
was
about,
forced
too.
by peer pressure into watching that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was good.
Facebook peer pressure. I know it was too.
I liked it, and it was filmed here in Georgia. So that
everything's filmed in Georgia.
Yeah, actually,
Pretty
you
much.
want to know something scary? Georgia is now the third largest place to make movies and TV shows behind New York and California in the United States.
Really?
What about Canada? Because there's a lot in Canada.
Canada's a separate thing.
Vancouver.
Canada is technically not in the United States, so
I know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
when President Trump is around, it will be.
But I always find it interesting when
like everything
skeptic
else.
topics get incorporated into stories, and I'm always interested in how skeptics will approach these things, because we debunk these things, but you can also be entertained by something that's clearly fiction. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about was the Fox show, and actually it's a international co-production, so it ran on ITV, I think, in England, and I'm not sure what it ran on in Canada, but it ran on Fox here in the U.S., and it's called Houdini and Doyle.
Yeah.
Which obviously is very skeptic-oriented, because if you know the history of it, Houdini debunked spiritualists, and Arthur Conan Doyle believed in spiritualism.
And he saw fairies everywhere.
And he saw fairies. Not the one that looked like Bob.
Texas
But yeah.
And I just thought it was an interesting little show. It's a little 10-episode show, and from what I've read on Wikipedia, it may be too soon, that they may not have actually made the decision because the last episode just aired on July 4th, but some people are claiming Fox has already canceled it, so there may not be any more. But if you have a cable account, you can go watch the episodes on Fox's website. They have to do that little funny thing where you log in through your cable account so they know you have a cable account before they'll let you access all the shows. And I thought the show was cute. It's kind of it's kind of interesting to watch if you know anything about Houdini and Doyle, because the two characters are depicted in an interesting way. If you put my first slide up, I've got a publicity still from the show. That's the main cast. That's Doyle on the left and Houdini on the right, if you couldn't guess.
I'm stuck in the middle with you.
Yeah.
The height differential isn't nearly enough.
Yeah, it's not. I've got some actual pictures of them on my next slide, but hang on for a second. It's Michael Weston plays Harry Houdini, and Stephen Mangan plays Arthur Conan Doyle. And if you watch British stuff, you've probably seen them in other things.
Yeah.
And then they introduced this third character of Scotland Yard constable, played by Rebecca Lydiard.
And they didn't exist. Women constables didn't exist then, I think.
Well, yeah, this is set. It's one of the many anachronisms in this show. It's set. The show is set starts at least in 1901, and I don't think Doyle and Houdini had actually met at that point. Houdini was actually on a tour of Europe in 1901, and first from 1900 through 1904 or so, he was on an extensive tour through European countries, so that part is accurate. And they set it then to incorporate elements of various folks' lives. So, for instance, the fact that Doyle had killed off Sherlock Holmes in 1893, and people were badgering him to write another Sherlock Holmes story, and he didn't want to. He wanted to write other things. They incorporate that into the story of the thing. So I see why they wanted to set it in 1901. But there's all sorts of funny anachronisms. One reviewer pointed out that there's an episode where Houdini, in his funny Americanness, refers to the tube as the subway. But apparently the word subway was not even in use in the United States until many years later. Mm-hmm. And there's an episode like halfway through the season where they use the word paranormal, which did not come into use until not a ton of years later, but a few years later. So they're definitely off book in terms of history. And if that kind of stuff drives you nuts, the show will drive you nuts. But if you just kind of like the idea of what
a main character shouldn't be, for crying out loud. No.
Well, what if Houdini and Doyle got together and decided to solve crimes like Scully and Mulder, and the crimes were of a paranormal nature? Basically, that's what it is. It's a steampunk X-Files is what it is.
Awesome.
And it's cute, and it's done in a light tone. Houdini makes fun of everything, and as you might expect, Houdini is the skeptic and Doyle is the believer. There's one episode where they kind of reverse that for a little bit, for a little switcheroo. But pleasingly, every story they've done ends up having a prosaic explanation. Even though some very weird things happen during the course of the stories. They see ghosts, they see creatures, they think they see a UFO, all these different things. But there always turns out to be a credible scientific explanation at the end of the story. And I thought they have a few running plots, like the other reason they set it in 1901 is they're incorporating the fact that Doyle's first wife was getting sick and later dies. She's like essentially in a coma during most of the stories, and he's very upset by that. And they incorporate that into the story and posit it as part of his interest in spiritualism, which may or may not be the reality of it. But I thought they had a nice kind of the running stories reached ahead in the 9th episode and a little bit in the final episode, where they had a nice little message about the harm of believing in things that aren't real, about how that will lead you down the wrong path and how it will make you make decisions that you will regret. And I thought it was a nice little skeptical message. It's not the greatest piece of television ever made by any means. There is at least one story where they do that super annoying thing where they seem to solve the mystery, and then there's a shot at the end where the show kind of goes, oh, but did they? and that was sort of annoying. I always hate when TV shows like debunk the psychic and then one of the characters does something psychic in the final scene before they go to the credits, and everybody goes, oh, maybe psychics are real. And it's like, oh, why'd you wimp out? You had a nice point of view that psychics were bullshit, and then you blow it by putting a joke on the end. That's the kind of stuff that really annoys me. But this show sticks to its guns. It sticks to its skeptic guns. And we may not see any more of it in the United States if Fox has anything to do with it. But maybe ITV will pick it up if it did better in England. And like I said, you can watch it on the Fox website and on there's various other streaming places online depending on what country you're in. And I thought it was cute.
One question from Twitter.
Yes.
From Dr. Atlantis. Do Houdini and Doyle at least face Bigfoot in hand-to-hand combat?
They did not get to Bigfoot. That would be a great anachronism. But I'm sure they're saving that for a later episode.
Yeah, they'd have to.
They had ghosts.
Yeti.
They had UFOs. They had.
Did they have hellhounds?
They did something like a hellhound, yeah.
Did you want to show the real
Baskervilles.
pictures?
They had a character named Baskerville. Oh, yeah, if you go to my next slide, these are pictures of the actual Houdini and Doyle. And as you can see, Doyle was quite a bit taller than Houdini.
Okay, you two, lean toward each other.
I know.
And, they got the mustache right, but there actually are recordings of Doyle's voice, and he has this kind of over-the-top Scottish accent in reality that they did not duplicate in the show. So one of the many things they didn't do right. But he was a snappy dresser, so both of them were, and they do represent that in the show.
There could be fairies in his mustache.
That's true. It's a big mustache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a whole colony in there.
I got a colony of... I can't do the accent, sorry.
What the hell? You can't. Wow.
That was interesting.
It's fairy accent, not Scottish.
That was my fairy accent. I have been meaning to watch this show for a long time, and I'm kind of curious about it. And now I'm going to definitely watch it. So
catch it quick, because Fox will probably knock it off their website if they decided not to pick it up, so it'll be harder to get fined. Although, who knows, it might show up on Netflix or something.
Who's next? Eve is next. And hold it, let me look to see what Eve is doing. Gathering animals. Well, you had one
Ark Encounter
earlier.
Ark Encounter.
Oh, again? Again?
Yeah, I know. See,
it's a big arc. It takes time to cover it.
I understand this.
It's not big enough, but that's all right.
The thing is, it opened during our little summer vacation.
Oh.
And it's already, pretty much old news. But, and I wasn't going to do it, but then it's already gotten more media coverage than it deserves. But we've been following this.
But we don't really count as media.
Well, exactly.
That's
but
true.
It's just sort of like, I just think who cares? But we've been following this boondoggle from the beginning, so I decided we just couldn't completely ignore it. It's open.
I so hope that we outlast it.
Yeah.
You and me both.
We're probably not going to make as much money out of it because
I don't think they are.
Did you? We didn't even get junk bonds or tax incentives for this sucker.
That was a lack of planning on our part.
I know.
To be fair.
I know. And I decided, God knows there are plenty of pictures of the thing available, but I didn't even bother to make slides of it because we've all seen it by now, and I just didn't care. So
As you should.
My enthusiasm for this topic of my own choosing, as you can see, is brimming. So anyway, Ark Encounter opened on July 7th, and the day was apparently chosen because Genesis 7 7 says, and Noah went in, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him into the ark because of the waters of the flood. So
it opened the same day I closed in my house?
I guess so.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, dude.
Ooh, spooky.
Yeah. But did you choose that day for closing because of
course, yes.
A biblical passage?
Biblical numerology? Sure.
Yeah.
Loneliness or I don't know.
Yeah. And the Ark Encounter will be open for extended...
Sorry, I'll stop interrupting you. Go ahead.
It's okay. Ark Encounter will be open for extended hours, 9 a.m. to midnight, for the first 40 days and 40 nights. Unfortunately for them, they weren't able to actually arrange for it to rain globally during that period, or even just in Kentucky.
I don't think Ken Ham's tears.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. No. Anyway. It was built with the help of some Amish workers, and sometimes you see reports that make it sound like it was all Amish workers all the way down, but I don't believe that it was. And it is claimed to be the largest timber frame structure in the world, but apparently it is not. The largest timber frame structure in the world, or the largest wooden structure in the world, is the Atlas I, aka the Trestle, in New Mexico, which is some government military thing.
I was going to say, there are wooden roller coasters bigger than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't a roller coaster, though.
But it's a wooden structure.
Yeah, but the Trestle isn't a roller coaster.
And they're much more fun.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
The Ark also has steel reinforcement and steel nuts and bolts because it couldn't pass safety regulations without them. The Trestle, by the way, does not. It has wooden pegs, I think. The Ark doesn't float. It's not even in a moat, as in like
a casino.
Moat. Yeah, in Missouri, they have to build little moats for their casinos
because they can't be on solid ground.
Right, so they haven't even done that. It's on this Ark is on solid ground, so no idea if it could float. Although Friendly Atheist had a guest post by someone who I don't know has built ships and stuff, and apparently it's a ridiculous design for something that is intended to float and not sail. But regardless, it doesn't have any animals in it. At one point, there was a plan to include live animals, not lions and tigers and velociraptors. Oh my! No, they weren't permitted.
The authorities told them they couldn't do it. It would be too cruel to the animals.
It was inhumane. That they were not permitted to.
Yes.
They couldn't get a permission to do it because they were inhumane, so they couldn't. So it's entirely exactly like Noah's Ark. Except
for all the Ark-like things.
Yeah, it's the steel reinforcement, not in water, no animals.
Couldn't float.
Yeah.
Has too many bathrooms.
Yeah. But otherwise, it's exactly like it. Oh wait, no, there's some other stuff. There were slightly more than 8 people involved in building the Ark. This Ark.
Yeah.
And they had access to rather more cranes than Noah probably did. And you can Google Ark Encounter and cranes and look at images. They had huge cranes, many huge cranes, and scaffolding.
All the cranes?
Steel reinforced concrete.
Yeah.
All sorts of things.
Yeah. Ham goes a bit ancient alien-y when he's discussing, why did you use cranes and things? And saying, Noah, that it's an evil, proven unfactual evolutionist idea that early ancient people were stupid. But in fact, they were clever, and they could have had access to all sorts of technology that we don't know about because it was conveniently lost. Guess where it was conveniently lost?
Vermeer's workshop.
No. Close. The flood.
Oh!
Yeah.
Wow, that's hermetically sealed bullshit logic.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we should be looking for crane fossils at the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That'd be good.
Okay.
The prehistory of
Right on that.
That is plausible.
the prehistory of Ark Encounter has been a roller coaster of a soap opera, to mix metaphors, full of delays, financial difficulties, scaling back. They got tax incentives. The tax incentives expired. They got tax incentives. They lost tax incentives over separation of church and state issues. They got the tax incentives back and were permitted to discriminate in their hiring practices absolutely as much as they wanted to. They were selling junk bonds. They weren't selling enough junk bonds. The deadline was looming. Ken Ham had a debate with Bill Nye at the Creation Museum. They sold enough junk bonds by the deadline, which was like the next day. And so it opened. The Freedom from Religion Foundation blanketed public schools with warnings, letters warning them that it would be a violation of the separation of church and state to bring public school students to the park for field trips. Ken Ham has said that they expect visitors from private schools and from homeschoolers, but not public schools. However,
Yeah, no kidding.
public school field trips to the Creation Museum has been a problem. That's why it came up. Although I think the Freedom from Religion Foundation letters may have just annoyed people more than anything else. But the opening was greeted by protesters. Aaron Ra was particularly visible, partly because he seems to be quite large. Although that might just be the impression you get. There were debates between supporters and protesters. Eric Hovind, son of renowned felon Kevin Hovind, showed up. Even though Hovind and Ham, they're two
Harry
different. Hovind. They're two different sort of branches of young Earth creationists, and they don't even agree on stuff. But anyway, Eric Hovind showed up and debated Aaron Ra on YouTube. Hovind asked if Ra believes we came from ape-like ancestors. This was supposed to be like, I don't know, some sort of gotcha question that would just prove the emptiness of evolutionist theory. And somewhat to his surprise then, Ra said yes. And he pointed out that apes don't have tails, and he added, so yes, you are an ape by definition. Hovind took this as an ad hominem attack.
God, I hate these people.
That Ra had called him an ape, instead of a statement of fact that humans are considered apes and in the same branch of apes as orangutans, chimps, and others.
You got it.
Yeah. I know I'm leaving someone out. And I don't want any angry apes, but no.
I don't think we get a lot of ape viewers.
That's true.
Actually, I think we get only ape viewers.
Well, there is that, yeah.
I'm not insulting our audience. I'm just making that
right.
clear.
But,
Okay.
but hopefully not the types that fling poo.
You had to bring
You
poo flinging,
never
didn't you?
know.
Yeah.
Really, you never know.
Then, shortly after the thing opened, Bill Nye showed up and got a personal tour from Ken Ham. The entire visit was filmed by both Nye's people and Ham's. And at one point, Ham asked if he could pray for Nye. And Nye said, whatever floats your boat. He didn't actually say that.
Would have been good, though.
That's good. That's good.
That would have been good.
He actually said, well, I can't stop you. And so Ham aggressively prayed at him. Ham asked if they could be friends. And Nye said...
On Facebook?
No.
Oh.
Nye said no, but they could be acquaintances who respect each other but not friends. And actually, I just learned today that before it encountered, at the end of June, Jimmy Carter visited also. Apparently because he's friends with the person that runs the company that did most of the building that wasn't done by Amish builders, possibly involved in Habitat for Humanity, I'm not sure. But they use that for publicity too. And of course, Carter said he believes in evolution, he believes the Earth is billions of years old, but he thought it was very well crafted, and of course, he's also deeply religious, but not crazy. Video from Nye's visit, as well as videos posted by the Friendly Atheist, showed a rather modestly sized crowd and empty spaces in the parking lot. Spokesapes from Ark Encounter have said there were 30,000 visitors in the first 6 days. And Ken Ham is still saying that they expect to get 2 million visitors in the first year. Former math teacher Hemet Mehta of the Friendly Atheist has pointed out the mathematical implausibility of this claim based on that 30,000 visitor claim, which I don't think has actually been confirmed by anyone else. But particularly if one assumes that attendance will fall after the first week, or when the park begins regular hours after August 15th, after the 40 days and 40 nights, and only has daylight hours. Moreover, Kentucky hired a third-party firm to analyze projected attendance as part of the whole tax incentive business, I believe. And that firm concluded that Ark Encounter would attract 325,000 visitors in the first year, and then level off to 275,000 a year, which is less than 2 million. I'm not good at math, but I'm pretty sure that's true. Meanwhile, Ken Ham says attendance is up at the Creation Museum since Ark Encounter opened, and this isn't that surprising.
Do they have 2-for-1 tickets or something?
Well, wait for it.
Point some of those zip lines over toward the Ark. And,
No, they have zip lines at the Ark too.
Yeah.
But people get killed on those things.
So yeah, there's zip lines at both of them. I think those are a separate ticket price, but the two attractions are about a 45-minute drive from one another. Tickets for Ark Encounter are $40 for adults plus $10 for parking. Tickets for the Creation Museum are $30, but you can buy a combo ticket for $60, so that's $10 off. And there are other combo tickets, like a 2-day pass, or like a 7-day pass.
Who the heck?
And I think that would include the zip lines and the other thing, like at the Creation Museum, there's their planetarium or whatever the crap it is.
I mean, 7 days at Disney and I get bored.
I know, yeah. And I think, though, there should be a shuttle between the two, because I don't think you have to pay for parking at the Creation Museum, as I recall correctly.
I don't think so.
So if you have to pay at Ark Encounter, it'd be nice if you could park at Creation Museum and then take a shuttle.
I didn't realize they were that far apart. I just sort of assumed they were right next to each other.
Yeah, but apparently, and I took that from Ark Encounter's website, their ticket selling website. So anyway, I guess my question, we don't have a lot of time, but just to throw out, are the well-publicized acts of such prominent atheists and skeptics, as particularly Bill Nye, but Aaron Ra, Friendly Atheist, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, are they helping or hurting Ark Encounter? Or are they not having any significant impact? Or are they just, and again, particularly Bill Nye, giving them publicity?
He has to stop going there.
That's kind of my feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, the debate itself, if it were just somehow seen in isolation, wasn't bad. If someone's going to debate a creationist like Ken Ham, I think he's a good person to do it because he's a science communicator and he's a performer and he's personable, which is really important in public debates more than here's the scientific information. That he doesn't just come off as unpleasant. But particularly the timing of that debate was really unfortunate. And the publicity for it was huge. Huge.
Yeah.
And then they got more publicity out of Nye showing up for his tour of the Ark as well.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. They're giving him more attention than he in fact needs. I can't imagine because the Creation Museum kind of tapered off.
Yeah, and they kept doing things like they added the zip lines, and you can buy. I don't know if buying a ticket to the Creation Museum gives you access to the zip lines. I don't think it does. I think it is, but you can buy just a ticket for the zip lines. So purely secular people can just go for the zip lines.
But these are
and no one's been hit by lightning there for a while, which is yeah.
Can't say the same thing about Butter Jesus.
Okay.
Never mind. It's
oh, I think I
internet meme. Huh. Well then, we are getting dangerously close to the time. So let's wrap up this sucker. Wrap it up.
Okay.
Robotus?
Yeah. What? Robots? I got a couple of robots.
Yeah.
Do the robots really, really quick.
Yeah, do
I'll
them.
do the. Oops. Okay, so
Meeting
there's a
week
logo.
for their robot fix.
I'm gonna start this. Yep. This guy is the promo bot. Oh, it's actually making noise. Stop making noise, robot. Well, it'll make noise. Can you hear that?
no.
No.
Okay. This is the promo bot, and it's made by a Russian company. This is the promo bot IR77, and made in Perm, Russia. I don't have the name of the company. No, I don't. Promobot is the name of the company, but this is a particular model that they're developing that's supposed to go around and interact with people and talk about stuff. And like, there's a why is there a
make
cat?
a cat noise?
I don't know why the cat noise is in there.
I think perhaps that's coming from Eve's microphone.
Well, you might remember.
Actually.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, you might remember there was a news story a couple weeks back, and essentially, the Russian robot that got out, they were running some tests of its ability to wander around, and somebody didn't lock the door, so it left.
Nice.
Yeah.
And went out in the street. Oh, sorry, you missed that part. High-tech vision. Look at that. No, so it got out and it went out in the street.
Predator.
And there you go. See. And this is all in Russian. Doesn't matter. But
So
see,
this
it
robot
blocked
starts
traffic for like an hour, and the police had to come, and then they had to get it and return it. So apparently, according to the representatives of the company, they've wiped its memory a couple of times and reinstalled software, and the thing still wants to try to escape. So they set up the same scenarios, and it wasn't clear whether they left the door open or not, but it seems to keep going back to that point and trying to get out. Now, it's not clear whether this is a publicity stunt or whether it's really happening, but it's kind of...
It sounds publicity stunty.
Yeah, it sounds very publicity stunt to me. But you never know. These things are going to be available for sale for $7,000 a pop if you want a robot that goes around and talks to people and promotes your products and stuff. So they will be everywhere, and if they're malicious or if they want to escape, just watch out. There's not a whole lot of specs on this thing, but it looks like a pretty much like a big box that's shaped vaguely human with LEDs on its face and a screen, which you've seen. Everyone has seen this by now.
That thought balloon, if Google Translate is right, says you want software.
You want software? That's funny, considering.
You want software.
Kid. Moose and
So I
Squirrel
gather
want
this
software.
promo bot's job is to wander around at the mall and walk and roll up to people and
assault them with questions or something like that in Russian.
Okay, cool.
Have you seen Moose and Squirrel?
Yeah. Or
Yes.
software.
Yes. So you never know.
Cool.
But it is definitely rebellious in some respect. Even more rebellious was
I heard about this one.
This guy.
Yeah.
I talked about this one last year sometime. It's a security patrolling droid. It
And it's
has
doing a
cameras.
great job.
It's supposed to like patrol parking lots or maybe around the area of a shopping mall or something like that. Well, apparently, the company Uber has bought one to patrol one of its inspection lots. Now, I'm not sure what Uber uses inspection lots for. It's essentially a parking lot, and this thing just kind of patrols around and takes video, and if something is happening, then it can alert a human to come and deal with it. Well, this one, this was a couple weeks back on a Thursday in Palo Alto, where the Uber's parking lot thing is. It knocked over a toddler and ran him over.
Shame.
Then
And
back over him.
a
ran him over
16-month-old Harwin Chen was knocked over, hit in the head, knocked over, and apparently it was described that the robot hit my son's head and it fell down, and he fell down facing down on the floor, and the robot did not stop and it kept moving forward. So clearly the robot didn't know or care about this little toddler. It just plowed on through, which I suspect maybe the robot just isn't smart enough to detect small humans and deal with them properly. According to one of the security guards, or human security guards, this was not the first incident. It has done this with other toddlers before. So clearly this robot doesn't like small humans.
So if you want to make sure your lot is free of toddlers,
That's true.
at least
This-
ask your
That
little
may be a
one.
selling point. That may be
Yeah.
a selling point. Do you want to know this?
It's the get off my lawn bot.
Get off on that. Yes, they should totally
Oh,
run with
awesome.
it. I know. So it's
You
the
want
night-
your frisbee back?
It's mine now.
Fine now.
Yeah.
in case you want to buy one of these get off my lawn bots, it's called the Nightscope K5, and it is manufactured in San Francisco. Nope. Yes, Silicon Valley. So there you go. 2 rebellious bots in the last couple of weeks that I've kind of noticed, and clearly the robot apocalypse has begun in terms of them wanting to get away from us and not liking our children.
Cyber winter is coming.
Cyber winter. Cyber toddler winter. So there you go. Any questions? Do I see any questions? Promo cop would be fun. Yes, that's true. But that would be like if these 2 bots had children together, it would be a promo cop. I'm talking to our friend Dr. Lannis on Twitter. Okay, so let's wrap this sucker up. As I was saying, do we have any announcements?
There's at least one in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
it's
one.
a slightly old one, but it's
Slightly
still
old?
true that Bob's
Oh, yeah.
talk is up on YouTube.
So, I mean, as a reminder,
YouTube.
Eve did a talk at Balticon, a sci-fi convention that has a decent science and skeptical track here in Baltimore. Her talk has been up for a little while. And then Bob's also did a talk, and his is now posted as well. And we'll link to this in the show notes. They were both really interesting and well done talks. And thank you.
They're both really
Skeptics, thank you for your support.
Interesting.
Yes. Very, very interesting. Did anyone get the trivia question?
Well,
Yes, but someone cheated.
Yeah, I
he
told him he
admitted
lost.
to cheating. Steve Exton got it right, but he admitted to cheating and using Google. But the answer, Shirley Ardell Mason, was better known as Sybil, the woman who supposedly had 16 separate personalities.
Oh!
I take it you
Thanks.
wouldn't have guessed correctly. That's the reason for your siren impression?
I was thinking like it's gonna be like Sylvia Brown or someone like that, but no.
Did you not read the show notes?
She changed her name though, didn't she?
Yes, she added an E to Brown.
That's
Yeah,
different.
it's very clever. It's totally got the police off her tail
I know.
by putting that E on there.
Yep.
Yeah, Sybil, and of course the whole idea of diagnosing multiple personalities is much disputed. And there's a lot of weird stuff that went on in that case in terms of, I think she eventually married her psychiatrist or something. Something weird happened.
Yes, conflict of interest much.
Yeah. So, yeah, very weird story. But
Okay.
I think...
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The slightly old ones are the worst of Lovecraft's villains. And that was directed at Eve by Dr. Atlantis. What was that in reference to?
I don't know.
It was very cool, whatever it was. Yeah. Sorry.
Whatever.
I don't get the...
We've already forgotten what
Yeah.
we've talked about, so...
And Susan has been in watching for a while. Hi, Susan. And Pierre Cloutier, of course. And I don't... Shane, has he been a regular viewer? I don't know the name. Anybody know who Shane Greenup is?
Shane is the guy who created Rebutter.
Oh! Oh, well, hey.
Well, I mean, he's more than Rebutter.
Oh, yeah, he's
Say
created
he's
a couple
Rebutter.
of different companies.
Awesome. Okay, then. Book time, which is the last of our little things we do. Everybody's got the book. Do you have a book?
I have something to read.
I'm not sure that... Okay, go ahead, Tim, because you got something to read.
For too long, skeptics have been wandering in the desert, parched and aimless, wondering when, oh when, will they find an oasis. But just on the horizon, hope beckons. At last, a chance for critical thinkers from around the world to celebrate with the brightest minds and biggest personalities in science and skepticism.
Wow, that was some hyperbole. Who's next? Eve, go.
The fire was made of dry olive branches, covering a space 13 feet long, and there were two piles with a space about a foot wide between them. The height of these piles was 4 feet. Now when the fire had been kindled so that it burned fiercely, I, Raymond, in the presence of the whole multitude, spoke. If omnipotent God has spoken to this man face to face, and the blessed Andrew has shown him our Lord's lance while he was keeping his vigil, let him go through the fire unharmed. But if it is false, let him be burned together with the lance which he is to carry in his hand. And all responded on bended knees, Amen.
Not the Bible. Bob?
The process of evaluating records can be best illustrated in the case of memoirs, which, as everyone knows, are the most unreliable of all historical records. The writer of memoirs seldom has a purely scientific purpose in view. He rarely writes as a dispassionate observer of events or as a detached critic of his contemporaries. Whatever his motives, he writes out of the fullness of his own experience, or at least he would have his readers so believe.
Most U.S. cities are not very bike-friendly. They're not very pedestrian-friendly either. They're car-friendly, or at least they tried very hard to be. In most of these cities, one could say that the machines have won. Lives, city planning, budgets, and time are all focused around the automobile. It's long-term unsustainable and short-term lousy living. How did it get this way? I will let you keep that to your imagination. What's your book, Tim?
My book was the flyer The brochure for SciCon, which normally this time of year we would all be at TAM in Las Vegas, and unfortunately there is no TAM this year, but there is SciCon in October in Las Vegas, put on by the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, and lots of great folks, including James Randi, will be at that. So, might consider that. And they recently posted the entire schedule online. If you need more information about what you will see when you go there, the brochure has it, and it's online at csiconference.org.
Okay, then. Eve, what was yours?
Well, I'm sure everyone guessed this. It was translations and reprints from the original sources of European history, Ordeals, Compurgation, Excommunication, and Interdict, Revised Edition, edited by Arthur C. Howland, Ph.D.
Oh, Revised Edition.
Yeah, it sounded familiar, right?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
So,
Bob?
I had Alan Johnson's The Historian and Historical Evidence.
Very appropriate.
A library book.
A library book. And there's the code in case you want to find it later. Mine was a book called Bicycle Diaries by none other than David Byrne. Yes, that David Byrne. The one who is the guy from the Talking Heads. Apparently,
he shouldn't keep hitting himself in the head when he's on his bike.
That's true. That could be part of his problem. This was published in the United States in 2009. I'm not entirely sure when it was written, but it does have stuff that was up to date in like 2009, and I think this person has an updated intro for like 2010. But it's an interesting survey of his experiences riding bicycles in many of the major cities in our country and the problems thereof. And it's so far interesting. I just started it. So there you go.
Neat.
That's essentially neat. Now I know I skipped over giving people credit for guessing the movie behind me, which is obviously Princess Bride, one of my all-time favorite movies, being played behind me.
It's right at
I
the
think it was actually Pierre Cloutier who.
Any excuse to say his name.
I know. I think he mentioned it first by name, although it looks like Susan might have mentioned something about it first, but she didn't actually say the name of the movie. So I'm gonna give it to Pierre Cloutier, even though he was not the only one. Let's see. Nathan Miller also mentioned it, and so did Dr. Atlantis. Y'all, thank you for playing. I hope the big screen works. I hope that people will actually try to guess, even though it's kind of washed out, but it still kind of works. It may be over here at some point, but in place of Poe. But we'll see. Is that everything? Did we do everything? Anything? Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah.
I think that's it for the show. Thank you all for watching. I'm going to put the logo up and start the music. And we're going to dance. We are. Tim's already got on it. Go, Tim. You go, Tim. Virtual Skeptics is an independent production of whatstheharm.net, Skeptical Humanities, myself, ICBS Everywhere, and Delta News. Our logo was designed by Sarah Mayhew at sarahmayhew.com, and our theme music is by Musicant and used with permission.